Hi, happy November. This is Elaine Brewster, and this is Aspects of Energy. And as you can see, it is that time of year. Thanksgiving is around the corner and a time to be grateful. And before we think of being grateful for network marketing companies that have helped us, I have a little story to tell you, a true story. Hopefully you'll see these. Once upon a time, there was a man named William Brewster. This is 13 generations ago. He did have a red hat and a purple jacket and green pants, although I don't know that he wore them all at the same time. He and his wife, Mary, were separatists. They were reading the Bible separately from what the Church of England was, and they believed a few different things. So they were meeting separately. Well, the Church of England did not like them. And so, can you see his key? Here's the jailer, and they popped him in jail with William Bradford and some other people. The jail is in Scrooby, England, and that's why Scrooby is famous. You too can go to the jail, and it actually has listed who was in what cell. Well, they decided they needed to leave England. And so they went to Holland. And that's where they started. Emily?
Yes. Sorry.
Thank you.
Yes.
There we go. They went to Holland and they started raising their children. And Holland was really open and tolerant, but the people in Holland weren't really religious. And so now they've got the tolerance, but they weren't able to raise their children the way they wanted. So there was only one place in the entire world that they could go, and they put on their capes and their coats, and they got in a ship called the Mayflower, and they came to America. When they got to America, they were greeted by a Native American named Samoset. And he introduced them, he knew English, and he introduced them to Squanto, who also knew some English. And in this way, they were able to learn how to raise corn and be able to sustain themselves. And I wanted to tell that story because that is the true story of Thanksgiving. A year later, they had enough food. And so they were so grateful that, sorry, this is where I cry. Okay, calm down. And so they had this big, wonderful feast, and they invited the Native Americans, and they came and they brought either 5 or 7 deer with them. And the feast lasted days. And they made all kinds of pies and just made everything good that they could. What was interesting is I think over a half of them, maybe 2/3 of them died the first winter. And they buried them all quietly so that the Native Americans around them wouldn't know how decimated they were becoming. I wanted to tell this story because you will not read this in history books in high school or in junior high or in elementary school now. The history books now make it look like they were adventurers who came here to get land and a better opportunity. Those were peripheral to them. There were actually 3 kinds of people who came on the Mayflower. There were what we call the pilgrims, who were in search of religious freedom. There were adventurers who wanted land. And then there were the apprenticed or indentured servants who had to work for 7 years. But since William Brewster was the minister on the Mayflower, he's my husband's 13th great grandpa. And so I made those little puppets, and we tell that story every year. And I hope that it's a simple enough story that, that my grandkids, hopefully that's one thing about me by the time I die that they can remember. But to me, what I've noticed is that first Thanksgiving created a lot of gratitude, and it made us grateful. So for a lot of people and people that are on our call today and people that we can share this with, we've all been very, very grateful that that something has come into our life that has made our health and made our lives better. And so, Emily, let's start with you because I know you need to leave. Oh, you're going to have to unmute. Did she come back? Or is she gone?
There we go.
We are.
Okay. So thank you. That was lovely. I'm going to remember that my good friend's husband's 13th great grandfather was a minister on the Mayflower.
There you go.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm on my way to an appointment, but let me share with you how why I love Nikken and its products. I was having a lot of difficulty for several years with extreme fatigue and foggy headedness, and just couldn't even sleep when I was really, really tired. That was 25 years ago. My youngest child was 6 when at the end of the time when I had that going on. And the way that I got over it was I started sleeping on a Kinko pad, a Nikken magnetic sleep mattress topper. And I didn't know really anything about it except that my friend recommended it. She was getting one. She was getting into the business. And I slept on that for a week and I did not have any more of those symptoms. I was better. I would wake up alert instead of dragging up and trying to prop up my eyelids. So that was a huge change for me. And I used that mattress pad ever after, and I used the smaller magnetic products when I had a backache or like a wrist or an elbow or a shoulder hurt. And then about a year and a half ago, I was battling a 2-year flare-up of really painful joints, and I was introduced to Nikken again. I wanted to replace some of my older magnetic products, and I met Elaine and was able to order some new products and found out from her that they had a water treatment system. And I was told that it helped with hydration at the cellular level. And I had been to see my naturopathic biofeedback testing lady and said, "What's going on?" And she had said, "Well, it looks like you're dehydrated." But I was drinking so much water. I thought I was drinking so much. I was drinking more than the average person. But she said, "It's not getting into your cells." And that was 2 weeks before I learned about the water treatment system. And so it really got my attention when they told me that the PIMAG water that is created from this system it's restructured. The molecules get into smaller groups and they get into the cells better. And I started drinking that. And about a month later, I didn't have any more discomfort or hurts or in any of my joints. And it was like a miracle to me. So I just can't not talk about this.
That's lovely. Thank you, Emily.
Thank you for
All
letting me
right,
share.
who else would like to share? Hattie Jane, go for it. And you'll have to unmute her. I can unmute.
I know, it's like getting my finger to work on that cotton picking trackball or trackmobile. It's like I was waving goodbye to him, like, but yes, I'd love to tell you about my history. A number of years ago, I was in nursing where I had been for quite a few years because I started as an aide when I was 15, and I was into beyond my 50s by that point. When I was looking and aware that my own health was yucky and not the best in the world. And I love nursing. Had no desire to really leave helping people feel better and get better. But my body was really wear and tearing. So I went to massage school because I figured that would be another way of returning to my roots, which was the back rubs that people would love for me to give as a nurse's aide.
Okay.
And I knew I couldn't handle working on the floors anymore. I never had been organized or being able to keep things together. So administration was not my bag. Fortunately, I was wise enough to know that. And as a part of the experience of training in massage and opening up my mind to many aspects which I'd known were there but didn't give them a name, I was introduced to someone talking about magnets. And we'd heard them and so forth and things, and they were out in the public. So I trotted up about an hour away to a lecture to hear what this chap had to say. And he said, well, I put it where it hurt, and that felt better. And there's one thing, I took it off and the hurt came back. I put it back on. Dum, da, dum, dum. And it worked. I went, And the young lady who introduced me, who was a fellow massage student, loaned me a pair. I said, I promised I'd bring her the check the next week because I'd be coming back for another information. But I promised her I'd bring her the actual cash, but I made out a check so she could cash it. And went off with her insoles. Whee! No idea what to do, anything else, but I got them on my feet and I'm troking down the road in the ice and storm and late at night heading back home. And suddenly I'm awake. I'm alert. I'm comfortable. This is at least 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, and I've been up since 5 in the morning. Because one of the things I was doing was helping a friend of mine have an income of sorts by driving her around on a newspaper route in addition to my nursing job. So I was doing that, and that was fun. And so I'm awake. So the next week I trot into the hospital where I'm working, and I say, check these things out. Well, the next week I returned to Baltimore, outside Baltimore, and attended the thing and brought my cash flow for my mortgage for that month, because I saw in Nikken the benefits that we didn't have in medicine that would so totally address individuals' ability to take care of themselves in a new way without interfering with what the medical model did. So it was the best of both worlds, the ancient and the new. And after 26 years, I've not been disappointed in the company. I've not been disappointed in the product line. And I still think it's the best thing coming down the pike.
Wow.
So that's why I wanted to share my story. It may not be for you. It may not be something that you want to get into. But know it's out there and keep it in mind if you're just trying to find some kind of answer. We have an amazing things that give you insight in a way that you don't expect, that then you can take better charge of your life and work with what you need to do. Thank you, Elaine. That's my story. I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, I would stick to it too. That's fabulous, Hattie Jane. Move a little bit so we can see that seat you're sitting on.
Oh, this is from a while back.
Kenko seat. No, Kenko seat. Kenko means health in Japanese. I had the same response the very first time I sat on that. I always fall asleep when I'm driving. To me, the car is just a great big cradle. And I sat on that Kenko seat and I could feel the energy coming from the seat up, and it kept me awake. So guess what I use every time I drive now? Okay, Lorraine, I think you're up. And then,
We have an even better one now.
yeah, I know they do. All right,
Yeah,
Lorraine,
I'm
tell us
Lorraine,
your
and
story.
Okay, I'm Lorraine, and I live in British Columbia, Canada. And my story, I'm a retired psychiatric nurse, and I've only worked short periods. I retired when my first husband retired, But about 30 years ago, I had a real wake-up call. I had some health issues that I had to attend to, and I thought I was being very proactive with my health at that time. And however, this situation happened, and I went through the conventional treatments or the recommended things that we needed to do. And so it was really quite a wake-up call. But 20 years ago, I was introduced by my daughter to a Japanese company that had magnets, and so I went down to the her presentation. She was doing a 21 club at the time, and I experienced that. I didn't really feel anything particular on it, but since she was in it and I do what my daughter says, I decided to sign up as a consultant so I could get the products. And before long, before I knew it, I had a total wellness home. I decided I was going to invest in everything. And what really caught my attention was the supplements. They were really something for me, because I was purchasing things from a health food store, and I really wasn't like it. And also and the water. I was drinking. I decided since this wake up call I had, I decided I better change my water. So I was buying reverse osmosis, and I had this container. And so once I got the wellness home, and I've been, I attend, and then I looked at the humans being more and the whole philosophy of this company. And I went to several presentations and all the wellness and previews that were around, and tried to educate myself. And so, of course, I was busy life, and I really wasn't building a business, but I was talking to a few people that, did purchase from me. But about 3 years ago, and when we downsized from a house into a trailer, we're now full-time RVers. So I was able to take my wellness home and apply it to my RV. And in the process of downsizing, I scanned everything on the computer, and I said, what am I going to do? I'm going to write my autobiography. So after that was done, and I said, okay, now what am I going to do for the rest of my life? I says, I woke up one morning and I said, there must be something to these products. I really feel good for my age, and I would feel really excited about life, and I was busy leading exercise classes and going for long walks and things. And I thought, well, I'll just start promoting wellness, because that was my purpose. I mean, since I took ownership of my health in all the areas of, oxygen, the air and the sleep and all that, and I was really involved with it. And now with just the experience of continuing on with the products and meeting so many nice people on Zooms, and learning more about the company, how it's operating and what it does for us, I'm just blown away and so excited to be able to share that. But when you have a wake-up call, you really have to take ownership for your health. And with the support of everybody, and plus my daughter, she keeps me busy, and it's just been marvelous. And so that's my brief story. Thank you.
Thank you, Lorraine. Wow, that's wonderful. And isn't that neat that now you have a wellness trailer?
Yeah, wellness on wheels.
Wellness RV. Yeah, can take that with you anywhere. Take it with you when you go visit the kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who would like to share next? Would you like to, Barb?
Sure.
Great.
Yeah, I've just been running all day and just got in, so that's why I'm having a little bit of coffee here.
Good.
Get me alert. Well, yeah, it's kind of interesting because it's fun that we've known each other somewhat, through the last year or two, and to hear. And I love your story, Elaine. Oh my gosh, you should write that as a little children's book.
Oh, true.
Seriously, that way it stays. It doesn't get lost.
Mm.
And of course, Lorraine has already published a couple books, right? And done so much. It's just, I'm so inspired by all these people that do. And of course, You heard Hattie Jane's and Gita. We heard more about her last night. It's just amazing what everybody's doing. So my journey with Nikken goes back. I was just sitting here thinking about it. December this year will be 27 years ago that I was introduced.
Wow.
But December of 95, which is 26 years ago, is when I actually enrolled. So how did this all happen? Well, again, I was in full-time nursing. So you've got a few nurses on this call. And we're big skiers. In fact, that's how I met my husband. It's interesting. That's how I met my husband. It's how I was introduced to Nikken. Common denominator there. But we were skiing in Colorado, and this good friend of ours, wonderful skier, beautiful skier, had a bad knee, had surgery by the quote, Dr. Stedman, who's the famous orthopedic surgeon, has a wonderful clinic in Vail. And he had surgery, but he was still in a lot of pain, basically, is what he said. And he took a lot of Advil. He just ate Advil to be out there, never complained. But he said to us on the chairlift, now, can you imagine it? We're on a chairlift. I couldn't get away from him if he was trying to sell me anything, but he wasn't. He basically said, I'm not taking any Advil for my knees anymore. And I went, so what are you doing? He says, it's the darndest thing, Barbara, but I'm wearing magnetic insoles and I'm sleeping on a magnetic mattress pad. Well, remember, I'm full-time at the medical college, never heard of such. I just looked at him and said, so how does that work?
Yeah.
I don't know. All I know is my wife is off all her anti-inflammatories. Everybody that I've given these to, they're just giving me all these stories. And so I get off, I ski down and I laugh. I do nothing for a year. A year later, so 26 years ago, December, I have a friend where I work out that at the time had a bad back. And so I remember walking out the door after work saying to my husband, I need to get her to the head of neurosurgery. Nobody's helping her because she lays on the floor half the time. And so he just laughs and says, why don't you tell her about those magnets? And I went, So I talked to her trainer and I said, would she be open? Yeah, she's open to anything. So I called my friends and said, bring me that stuff. I want to read about it. The article, you can imagine the mimeographed articles back then weren't very clear, but the one article that got my attention was about the magnetic earth and how you and our dogs and our plants would not survive without it. And I went, this makes sense. I love being outside and I feel better outside. And then there was another study that was about using sleep system in Japan, and they called it the magnetic deficiency syndrome. And I went, you know what, this is probably our fibromyalgias, our chronic fatigues, because back then nobody knew what that was all about. They wouldn't even diagnose it, but I just remember saying that's probably what's happening. So that night we go over to their room, and there weren't a lot of products back then, but he had the original Mag Boy, which was the predecessor of the Mag Duo. She got hit by a snowboarder that day, and he just took that little roller and just rolled it all over her shoulder, and she had no more discomfort. And I went, when we get back to Richmond, I want to look at this stuff. Let them go. They fly off. We stay an extra day, and we all have bad knees. And my husband falls and has a knee injury, and of course it's swollen, and I do all the nurse things. We elevate it, we ice it, we fly home. I said, wish we had some of those magnets. And they drive to Richmond and give us the original Mini, which is the predecessor of our power chip. And I put one on either side of his very swollen knee under a knee brace. And he was in concrete construction at the time. Of course, that does a job. I remember coming in and standing right there on that step and saying, let me see your knee. And he takes everything off, and he had zero swelling. I looked at him and said, you don't go out and work on that and it gets smaller. I want these things. So that's how I got. And then my next person I wanted to help was my dad. The very next person I wanted to help was my dad, who was in Canada and never complained of anything. But this was an interesting story. He had emphysema. He was a heavy smoker. So therefore probably had bad circulation, et cetera. Never complained. He was a sweetheart. I sent him the insoles. Couple articles, highlighted some things. I was only 3 months into it, didn't know a thing about it other than maybe these will help them. Couldn't wait. Back then, I don't know if you remember, Lorraine, it was expensive to call Canada, so we didn't call very often, but I couldn't wait to call them and say, Dad, did you get those insoles? Says, yeah. I said, did you put them in your shoes? Well, yeah, you told me to. I mean, honestly, most family members will not listen to you. Dad did anything I suggested. It was such a delight to help him because he might have thought his nurse daughter was crazy, but he didn't say it. So when, I mean, as soon as he said, oh yeah, you told me to, I said, oh, well, Dad, did you feel anything? And I never realized, but he calls me Barb's with an S on it. Never picked that up until I got down here when I'd get cards from him with the S on it. And he says, well, Barb's not really. My heart just sank. I went, well, Dad, you know what? The good news is it might take 2 or 3 months, but he said, they won't hurt anything. He says, oh, yeah, I'll leave him in. But he says, I tell you one thing, my feet are warmer. And I went, that's all I needed to hear. I'm telling you guys, that was the best. I just went, wow, he never had those out of his shoes till he lived 8 years. And I mean, truly, what I just always say, if I never helped anybody but Don and it's okay. But that's how I got into it. And now that's 26 years ago. So why am I so passionate now? I'm actually more passionate now than I ever was because we've got such a hurting world out there. I mean, nobody, now think about it, 26 years ago, were many people open to magnets? No. But at the same time, I'd encounter people that were taking care of Dad. Everybody that was on their feet needed the insoles. So I loved it. But now think about it. We've got such a gift for people and there are so many people hurting. Our medical system is totally broken. We have phenomenal physicians, but they can't handle all the chronic issues. So it's really more of a purpose now than ever. I probably took too long to share all that, but that's where I am.
No, that's fabulous. And one thing that I should have said at the beginning is, a disclaimer that we're not making medical claims with this company and with these products because the body is a very, very complex system and we don't know what it will do for you, but we do know that it won't hurt and that it will help.
Well, and what I tell people, because if you think of it in terms of the earth, the sun, the air, all provide our bodies with much needed sources, and we don't get all of that. So when you just think of the simplicity of it, I always say it's very simple. It's profound, but very simple. Yeah. And really, when you give your body that environment, your body helps itself, which is glorious. So yeah, we really have a gift.
Yes, and that's what we want to do is to increase the body's ability to, to help itself. Does anybody else want to share? I realized that I did not share my story, and you might like to hear it. Back when I was in graduate school, well, those of us who are this age may remember, back in the day, our aunts and our moms always cut things out of the newspaper. You cut recipes out. You cut, oh, Barb graduated, and you cut it out and you gave it to your neighbor or you mailed it to them. I mean, we were cutting things out of the newspaper all the time. And now I'm in graduate school. I have 6 children, 2 are on LDS missions. It was crazy. And so I thought, what can I do to slim down my life? And I decided that I would not cut out anything from a newspaper for 2 years. This was a big deal. And I was a good girl. For 2 years, I did not cut out anything except for one time. It was so fascinating to me that I cut it out, and I still have that article. It was a story about a little gal, 14-year-old gal, who lives 2.5 hours south of me in a place called Cedar City. And she had been on a youth activity with a whole bunch of other junior high and high school kids at her church, and they had been playing broom hockey, and she was in sandals. So imagine this puck that it's just like hockey, only with brooms. So this puck is flying across this smooth wooden floor at what? 50 to 80 miles an hour, and it hits her toe dead on. It hurt her so badly that the boys had to pick her up and carry her home because she couldn't walk. So they carry her home. The parents are distressed. They take her to the hospital. Nothing's broken, so they can't do anything about it. she's fine, send her home. She should be okay in the morning. In the morning, she wasn't. And so within a week, they took her to another hospital. Nothing's broken. They can't find anything on x-rays, so they can't fix it. They send her home. But now instead of just at her toe, it's gone up her foot. And now it's going up her ankle. And by the time it had gone up to her knee and was heading up her, up to her thigh, they took her up to the primary children's hospital in Salt Lake, that is one of the foremost hospitals for youth in the nation. And what they said was, we can't fix anything. We can't see anything to fix. But what we can tell you is that, is that when that hurt goes up your groin and then goes down your other leg, you will be in a wheelchair for the rest of your life. That's what Western medicine had to offer her. And that wasn't good enough for her parents. And this many years ago, 25 or so years ago, I don't know how they found this, but they ended up going to Texas for a $7,000 treatment. It was some big magnetic arms that did something. Anyway, she went in on crutches and left her crutches behind and walked out, and she was fine. I had never heard of anything like that. As you can imagine, I was just flabbergasted. And so about 2 days after I graduated, 2 days after I had my orals, our boys' soccer coach knew that we were going to have to move. My husband had made a mistake. He was maybe a little bit, that Vietnam rebellion kind of era. He did not play the tenure game right at the university, and he didn't get tenure. He should have, because he was brilliant, but he didn't play the game because the game was research. And so anyway, we had now been turned away from the university, and we were going to have to go somewhere else. And he really didn't want to. He had a single mom, and he was the oldest son. He felt really responsible, wanted to stay here. So our soccer coach gave us this cassette tape and said, listen to it. It might be something that can help you. And so we listened to it, and to my astonishment, it was a company that featured magnetic products. And see, I'd already heard about it. And besides which, I'm a singer, and so my entity is unseen. I can hear it, but I've never seen it. And so the idea that there were things out there, like Barb said, from the earth and from the air and from the sun, that raise our energy, that's raising our vibrations, it's raising our frequencies so that we can be healthier. It just seemed to make sense. And as I said, my husband needed a job, and so we jumped into it. And I think another reason that it really resonated with me is because my mom was sick my whole life. In fact, she was not supposed to have me. I was the last child, and when she very excitedly, after 2 miscarriages, told the doctor that she was pregnant, he said, "Oh, that's too bad. We'll see what we can do." And so I was born 3 or so weeks early, but basically okay. And anyway, she was sick my whole life. And for the last 16 years of her life, she had at least 1 major surgery every year. She never had a chance to recuperate, and because that's what they had to give her, surgery and drugs, surgery and drugs. She actually died the year this company Nikken came into America. So she never had the chance. Back then, they didn't know. Now, Nikken has been in our country about 31 and a half years now. The company itself is 46 years old, 46 and a half, I guess. And actually, when this Japanese company Nikken, when they came into America, some of the company heads wanted them to come, and others didn't want them to come. They said, Americans don't understand about alternatives. They don't understand about prevention. the Americans won't want us. And so some of the people, you know, they didn't even want the company to come, the people who were heading the company, but they did come. And like all of these stories have said, have made a huge difference. And I myself could tell you an amazing product experience from every single product in the company, because I have all of them. I take all of them. It's what the company has ended up calling a wellness home, because that gives us tools right in our own home to, you know, to help us be better. Is that as good an ending place as any? I just wanted to hear nice stories. I didn't think about a good way to wrap it up, but
It's a great way to wrap it up. And the other thing that I think, I call it the, why am I still involved? It's the P factor. It's the products, because we know that bar none, that they're doing so much for everybody and ourselves. And that's the most important thing. Take care of yourself, because if you can do that, then you can help others and then share this. But it's the products, the people, phenomenal people, just like everybody on this call. I cannot even explain. My family has no idea about this whole Nikken family that I have and the support that I have. I mean, when my husband died, it was just phenomenal. So, and that whole community, as we call it now, is incredible in terms of, even if you don't even use a product, you've got some wonderful people that you know and great resources. So it's the people, the product, the purpose. I mean, literally the purpose is now to just share this so that there is a better life out there for people. Because quite honestly, it's just a mess, as you all know. And what if we could help anybody with their living, their lifestyle, and then whatever. So yeah, it's the P factor that keeps me involved with this.
that's great. The P factor. Well, continue on with a good T factor for Thanksgiving for the rest of the month. And thank you so much. I am grateful to all of you. Have a great rest of your weekend.
Happy
See you
Thanksgiving.
later. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Shirley. Thanks, Linda.